Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm not bringing you one book review, but two. So with the release of the new movie Murder on the Orient Express, I decided to dive into a little bit of Agatha Christie for the first time, and I feel like I'm just discovering her, even though I know she's one of the single most popular authors on the entire planet. But I read her for the first time, and I've actually read two of her books now because I love the first one so much. So today I'm going to be talking about Murder on the Orient Express and The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. So I decided to do these two reviews together because they are not only by the same author, of course, they both feature the same detective, which is Poirot, who is one of the best characters ever. So I used to watch the TV show with David Suchet when I was little with my mom and my sister, and I absolutely loved it. He is absolutely amazing. So if you've never seen these episodes before, you should really dig them up because they're just fantastic. But I've seen Murder on the Orient Express, so I know how this book ended. So because I've watched that show, I've actually seen a lot of the Poirot stories before, but I've never actually read any of them. So with this new movie adaptation that was coming out, I decided that I finally wanted to dive in. So Murder on the Orient Express, as you may be able to tell from the title, is about a murder that happens on a train. It gets kind of trapped in a snowbank, and then everyone wakes up the next day to discover that one of the passengers is dead, and every suspect is on this train. So there's about 10 different people, and there's lots of lies and deception, and it's a big puzzle, and our great detective Hercule Poirot has to be on the case, because naturally he's on the train too, because everyone is always getting murdered around Poirot. So what I loved about this particular book is that it's basically, I've read a lot of crime fiction, maybe not as much as some people on here have, but I've read a fair bit of crime fiction, and while I love it, it's very graphic, and it describes a lot of sort of violence and gore and horrible stuff. I mean, I've read Val McDermid's books, and if you know anything about her, you know that she is very graphic and very, actually, quite uncomfortable and scarring. What I loved about this is that it's not graphic. Of course, like, a man gets murdered and is stabbed, I believe, 26 times, but it doesn't really go into that at all. What this book is really about is that it's a puzzle, and I think that this is sort of going to become a theme for all of her books. She writes a puzzle, and the fun is sort of figuring out what happened alongside the detective. And of course we never can, because he's much smarter than the rest of us. Murder on the Orient Express features a huge cast of characters that's really sort of very diverse, and sort of you get this really vivid picture of who these people are. Even though this is a very short book and there's maybe about 10 different suspects, you really get a good idea of who all these people are. Now, of course, this book is most famous, I think, for its ending. It has a fantastic ending, and if you know how this book ends, please do not say anything spoilery in any of the comments here. Don't spoil it for anyone, because the best way to go into any mystery, but particularly this book, is to go in just completely blind. So just really quickly to wrap up this very brief sort of synopsis review of this book, I gave this 5 out of 5 stars because I really loved it. It's a really fast read, it breezes through so quickly, and it's just so much fun. So because I loved Murder on the Orient Express so much, I automatically returned to my public library and got out a bunch of other books by her. And so I called up my mum, who is the queen of crime fiction, and I asked her if she had any recommendations. So of course there are other very famous books of hers, and then there were none, of course, being her other sort of huge title. And I asked her for her sort of favorite of the Poirot books, and she said The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. And so this turns out to be, even though I don't think I'd ever heard of it before, this turns out to be one of the most popular of her books. I believe that this is the 4th Poirot book. So The Murder of Roger Ackroyd starts out with actually not Roger Ackroyd's murder. It is the suicide of the woman who he kind of has an understanding with. They're going to announce their engagement soon. So she has been rumored to have murdered her first husband by poison, which is very scandalous in this small English town. And the story is narrated by a Dr. Shepherd, and he's very good friends with Roger Ackroyd. He's the town doctor. He's the one who examined the body of his fiancée when she had committed suicide. So he is invited up to Roger Ackroyd's grand estate, and he's told Roger Ackroyd's very nervous. Something is going on here. So it turns out that the woman who Roger Ackroyd was engaged to was very, very nervous. She was implying that she was being blackmailed. She was being blackmailed by someone who was very close to Roger himself. So as they're speaking, the Evening Post comes in and a letter from his dead fiancé comes in, and it will probably have the name of the blackmailer, the person who drove her to suicide, in it. However, he decides that he wants to read it on his own, so the doctor leaves him alone. That night, the doctor gets a phone call that Roger has been murdered. So naturally, of course, because everyone gets murdered around Poirot, Poirot is the doctor, Dr. Shepherd's new neighbor, and he's kind of retired from his life as a very, very world-famous detective. And so, of course, he gets on the case. So this book was mind-blowing. I can't really say why. Just the way that the story comes together is just so incredible. And something that Agatha Christie does really well in this book and in Murder on the Orient Express is that she does that very dramatic sort of reveal where everyone is gathered together, all the suspects come together in a room. This is now sort of almost an archetype of this particular genre. Everyone would be rolling their eyes and saying, yes, this has been done before, but she is among the first people to do this and make it really popular. She gets all the suspects together in one room, and then the detective tells you exactly what happened. He kind of presents all of his evidence, and then points at the person who did it, and it's just fantastic. It's a great, very, very dramatic reveal. This book has a very, very dramatic reveal, and I absolutely loved it. I also ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars. So both of these books together would be incredible places to start with Agatha Christie, and I think that it's kind of funny to be recommending her because, again, she is one of the single most popular authors in the English language just ever. But I think that she's almost become a name that maybe people recognize, but they haven't read any of her stuff. And I think that she's well worth going back and revisiting, not only because these books aged incredibly well, but if you are a person who's maybe worried about sort of the language in older books being a little bit difficult. I believe these were both written in the 20s. They're very accessible, very, very accessible, and they don't seem to have, there are a couple things in them that are dated, but they still work for a modern reader, which I think is just fantastic. So next up I'm probably going to be reading And Then There Were None, which again is a big famous title that everyone knows. I actually don't know anything about it. I know that it is a standalone detective. It is not a Poirot or a Miss Marple mystery, which is actually kind of really exciting, but does make me a little bit sad. But I should branch out from just the Poirot books. So if you are a big Agatha Christie fan, then definitely let me know if you recommend any of her other books. Maybe something that's a little bit less obvious than something like Murder on the Orient Express, which everyone knows. Maybe something that I would skip over if I didn't know about these books at all. And again, if you want to talk about sort of the ending of these books, which are both fantastic, please, please don't spoil the end for anyone who might want to read them. A friend of mine just had the ending of this spoiled for her, and she was really, really upset because they're both such great, great endings. So please, spoiler-free discussion if you may. So I'm looking to do more sort of book reviews and reviews like this and more kind of discussion-y type videos. So if you're interested, then definitely subscribe to my channel. I'm hoping to get back to posting videos a little bit more regularly. I've been really ill and under the weather, so I've just not been posting at all. But I'm going to be getting back to posting videos regularly, so definitely subscribe if you would like, and I will see you next time.